Okay, so I have to set up a few more things, but we should talk about the tier list now. Okay, so let me try to get the comments also. And in the background, I will start the game, but we can also go for the screen recording here. So, yeah. So let's first talk about like some basic parameters. I will always assume that it's 6-player lobbies. I will also assume that all players are roughly equally skilled. I think especially with like early aggression is very good if you just beat up someone, but normally you won't beat up players of equal skill. You can only pressure them into showing like less of their like playing a little bit more defensive. Um, so I will also use my PvP stats as reference. And additionally to that, I will try to from time to time check the screenshot channel and look at the stats of some of the other players. For example, can we look at maybe GoGlow has his Grandmaster stats? Yeah, Killick GM. Okay. Okay. So I think the easiest to do is to start at the bottom and work our way up. So maybe let's talk about what the tier means. Also rename this to S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier. So basically, in D tier, I want to have all the leaders that are very, very unfavored. Like they will often even not be able to contest games. The biggest example is like this Ixidar. Like his agenda is so terrible. It's pretty much impossible to like get anything done with it. You need a lot of like good timings that are not just like you time your attack well, but also like opponents are having favorable fights for you. Like they beat up each other and you can come in and take Nexus from the one that got it in the end for cheap. Stuff like that might enable the Infiltrator to win. If we go down here to my Infiltrator stats, I have a 20% win rate, which should be the lowest. Yeah, lowest win rate for me. Might also be lowest top half percentages. No, collective actually is worth. But I also only have 2 games on collective, like, and Profiteer ties it. Uh, so all in all, really bad. Then on the C tier, I want to have leaders that they can start to contest, but they need at least like a few things that work out in their favor. A good example here, for example, is like God Queen. like if you don't get like C1 Nexus, or like at least you need like the first title. Like if you don't hit Nexus or titles during the first 16 turns, you're basically not gonna be able to win the game because you're so far behind in XP. And that's even considering that, yeah, Kyondar is like a super powerful faction. So this is like for me like the C tier. Like if you get the early Nexus, you can easily win games. You are like very like competitive, but you need a good early game. Then on B tier, I want to have leaders that are just like very solid. Like if you get lucky, you can be very strong. But like even if you don't get like super lucky, you will still be like able to do like decently, not go last or something like this. And if you play very well, maybe get a few outplays, you can often win games. So for me, like the number one, like the big B tier leader for me is Monumentalist. I actually think that he's like more at the bottom of the B tier, but I think it's like really good characterization of the B tier. You don't really need to hit tech. If you hit Monolith Construction on Nano 8, you are like a huge threat to everybody. And if you don't hit it, you still have Turret 1 economy, you still have a bunch of megas you can build, very good eco and all that stuff. So you will never be like in a super bad spot. Turtle Monumentalist struggles a little bit with getting focused and losing all his megas in a war. So that's a big negative about this leader, but I think still it's like B tier. Then on A tier, it's getting a little bit more difficult. So A tier for me are leaders that are just have a very good position. Like nearly every game they have the potential to win. And you don't need like Monumentalists. Sometimes I think if you don't hit Monolith Construction and you don't get good titles, like it's tough. So A tier are basically leaders that are not really title dependent. They can contest everything. They will never go like super bad. And for me, like I think Patriot is like a great A tier example. With your amount of politic edicts, you can pretty much always contest. You're so flexible. You can go patriotism and have a strong army if you find the right military tax. You can go the opposite way. You can go versatile, build up the biggest eco in the game. There's just like so many possibilities, and you're like not the one-way pony like most of the B tier leaders are. And then there's S tier, and I think S tier is like for the really broken stuff. Biggest example for me here is Inquisitor, because you just have like this. You don't need good tech. Basically, all the tools that are required to dominate military-wise is like culture edicts you have anyways, and the militant. And every tech you find on top of it makes you even more makes it even more busted what you're doing. But you will always be extremely powerful. Uh, and like timing attacks with Inquisitor, plus you have like all the culture points. Just is like too scary. So these are for me the 5 tiers. Also during the tier list, I will consider the current meta, which I think is not very war heavy. So war leaders will fall behind a little bit, because the problem of war is that like whenever you like attack someone, most often you're only stopping that person or out ecoing that person. And if you just play an eco leader, you can basically you're fighting the whole lobby at once, and that's just far more favorable. So we'll see a lot of the leaders that like require to fight other people lower down here. Also, I think currently late game is far more important than early game. I think the biggest reason here is in the early game, if you're good in the early game, you will make a lot of points early on because you can contest all the titles. And then in the late game, people will be focusing you, maybe the war faction attacks you and all that stuff. While in the late game, if you had a bad early game, you will still have like 4 open titles in the late game, and you can basically claim them all at once. Like I have seen 50 point swings at like turn 40 council with a faction that had a good late game, and people will not focus you, or you can explode and people underestimated you. It's far easier to go under the radar. So I think late game is slightly more important than early game and mid game. So let's start by filling out the bottom. I think there are 2 more leaders in the lowest tier. It's Collective and Profiteer. I think Profiteer is slightly better than the 2 Exidal leaders. The problem is that I think all of these like really struggle eco-wise. Like Collective has a really good agenda, but to fulfill it, you will often need support production. And support production on Exidal is like very weird. Additionally, like the meta is very support heavy. Basically, I think every good player will tell you that the start of the game is finding a planet where you can build support buildings and create a support planet, because otherwise you don't have enough actions, and if you don't have enough actions, you will fall behind bit by bit. So this is like a big problem for X in general. And now Collective cannot even go the full like I will only have materials, because for one of your edicts you need support. Often you won't have enough support to actually have culture, so you basically lose out on a huge amount of culture points. And all of that while having difficulties like limited actions. I think that just leaves Ixidar in a very bad spot. It's still infinitely better than Infiltrator. This thing is just terrible. And then we have the Profiteer. I think that leader struggles. First of all, Shinnor weakness, not getting points from Diplo in the current meta is huge, because diplomacy is very important, and basically missing like 5 to 6 points during a game is very problematic. Also, the fact that I really don't think trade builds are good. Maybe Killik trade builds can work, but it's like very, very difficult to make work. Also, buyout, like strong players will all be able to play around buyout. Hello, Trainwreck. I really think like this is on the merge of C tier, just because like strong eco in the late game, but I think it comes online a little bit too late, and trade value, like money, is very difficult to play around. So maybe I think Shinnor absolutely has the potential that someday somebody will show us how to play Shinnor correctly and like have a very good trading eco. But currently I feel like Shinnor players, they start out, they have a shit eco, and then in the late game they go exponentially bigger, and suddenly they have 500 credits when the game ends and they couldn't use them, and it's then you have to ask yourself like, why did you even go for so many credits? So yeah, I think these 3 are for sure like the 3 worst leaders in the game. And since we already talked about Shinnor, we can maybe follow up with the, how is it called, Exploiter? Yeah, Exploiter. I think Exploiter goes into C tier. He has similar struggles as the Profiteer. The only advantage is that you are not forced to go trade build. You can go like the extra construction edict is very, very nice. Uh, just I think in the late game you miss the extra points from diplomacy. You don't have a good start for going culture because you start on industrial planet. You will have support struggles early on, and everything else is like kinda mid. You're not guaranteed to have powerful tech. I just think this leader needs like a good matchup, has to get like an early Nexus, maybe some decent titles. I just think he's like slightly below the curve of most other leaders. So that's why I would put him C tier. Another C tier leader, I think, weaker than Exploiter is the Statesman. I think Statesman is like an incredibly funny leader to play, but there's like so much, your agenda is like very swingy. So you can get up to 100 XP every council if you get the right title and resolution that's voted for, which is very good if you get it. But if you miss out on like both, on like title and resolution in the early game, you will often be super far behind. And it has potential to go like uh, to go high diplomacy build like of Asphalt's style. You can also go C1 Nexus, and you can even try to hold Nexus early on by going insane on army strength. There are like a lot of things that makes this leader decent, but overall I think you can fall behind the curve early on very hard. The ultimate is like most resolutions you can pick with your ultimate are not very good. So often ultimate is not really getting you anywhere. Your level 3 traits are all very bad, and if you don't have a good like turn council 1, council 2 voting phase for your agenda, it will take so long to get to that level 4 trait with the extra draw, which like basically is the point where you really get going. So I think third one, Statesman, struggles a little bit. Uh, I also like during this voting, you will see that I don't think diplomacy is like a super solid win condition. I think Aspal is playing incredibly greedy with his style, and I don't think that's like he does a very, very good job of like piloting his Diplo play style and like always finding like the deal you just like barely have to accept. But I think in theory, like people should take too much Diplo from Aspal in the mid and late game. And you should really only take the diplomacy if you feel like that you are like in a very strong position and you will definitely finish in front of him. So I won't like rate all the Diplo leaders super high just because Aspal is so good at playing them. So yeah, that's why Stateman goes into the C tier. I can also add the other Ixidar leader to the C tier. He basically has the same struggles as all the Ixidar leaders. You cannot contest culture really. You cannot really contest support titles, presence titles can be contested just because you can have so many planets. But it's still difficult. Low actions make early game somewhat difficult sometimes. Uh, but in comparison to the other two, you can high roll technology on this leader to a far bigger extent than on the other leaders. And if you do that, you can actually become very powerful. But I think you need very, very good high rolls to make that work. Yeah, if you look at it, it's my best Ixidar. Of course, I don't really play a lot of Ixidar, so let me check for a second if there's anyone with a little bit more Ixidar games. I think Labrat has quite a few, so let me look for his screenshots. I just saw that Strat has basically 3 games on Proliferator when he last shared his screenshot, and all of them went bottom half, and I think multiple of them even went last place. So yeah, when even Strat is doing that bad on that stuff. Yeah, Oyo has like 50% win rate on Proliferator, and like total win rate on Xidar is only 22%, so basically sub 10% win rate on the other 2 leaders, which is crazy. And Labrat actually has not a very good win rate on Proliferator as well. Actually worse than Collective. Okay, interesting. But overall I think Proliferator is just slightly stronger. And yeah. So now we still have another case similar to God Queen, which is a strong leader, a strong faction, but very, very hard to pull off. It's the Fnatic. I think my Fnatic stats are actually pretty good. Yeah, 60% win rate and 100% top half on 5 games. But I definitely had like very, very good tech picks, I think, in most of these games. And in the one game I lost, I really felt that he wasn't a very strong leader. I think the biggest problem is that the agenda is not super powerful and is really like if you're forced to make like a lot of weird decisions and all that stuff. Like you cannot take planets without using your leader edict on it because otherwise like your XP gain is too bad. And you cannot just like randomly take Nexus. You basically need to at least try to combo it with your leader edict and all those things. I still think it's like a cool leader with some potential, and Arve Eco in general is just like very powerful. You have all the culture points you will get late game. So I think it goes in front of all the 3 other leaders, just because basically you can contest culture. Only that is already makes him like very, very consistent at not being like super bad. But I think like he slightly misses the potential to have like good XP curves, and I think to make this leader work you need to get Nexus at some point during the game. And if you don't get that, it's very, very hard to do anything. Then another leader I would like to put into the C tier is the Marshal. And I think I will put him pretty high here. I think his Marshal is like very, very hard to judge. Also kind of biased towards this. Let's shortly look at my stats. I score 60% win rate with it, over 13 games, 92% top half. So stats are good, but you need to consider that Marshall was heavily nerfed throughout the game's history, and a decent amount of those games happened before the nerf. So nowadays probably my stats would be lower. Uh, I think like Killick in general can contest a lot of stuff. The problem just is that the Marshall ultimate basically forces you into a direction where you have to go like more combat heavy. And I think for that to work out, you either need like an early Nexus or you need to take very good combats in the late game. And your ultimate means basically, and your leader edict sets you up in a great way to do these things. You have a good chance to get a C1 Nexus. And you also have, if you find somebody that has less tech than you can basically always beat them in a combat, like in a war. Playing the ultimate once per turn is so incredibly broken for long wars if you are not in a disadvantage tech-wise. Uh, so yeah, I think it maybe even goes like here. You still have like the default killing ability to chain a lot of specific edicts. Sometimes I also wonder if maybe it would be better to not focus on military when playing this leader and just basically just go for like infinite construction edicts, but I just don't think that build is quite good enough. Yeah, I think you have to go war, and then you have to find somebody who's weaker than you and beat them, because you cannot win big, like your leader edicts don't help you to win big fights. They are great at giving you tempo during wars. And normally during wars, tempo is like very important, because when you fight against somebody else, normally your units will take a longer time to reinforce, which then means that if you have like a big fight and it's somewhat even, or you only slightly win, you actually won't win the war because your opponent has tempo advantage because he can reinforce his fleets more quickly. And Marshall kinda plays around this tempo disadvantage, but you still need to win the fights. And if that would not be the case, he would be like easy B tier, but this way, maybe even A tier. But this way, it's just like if you miss out on some of the good military techs, stuff is getting very, very difficult. So then I have this leader, and I put him at the bottom here. Woodarian Overseer. Let's check my stats on it. I have a terrible win rate on this leader. This was basically the leader that bottle kept me from getting the Woodarian Grandmaster. Was completely terrible to get the final win. And the problem here is Overseer in theory looks not even that bad. Like your leader edict is basically a construction edict, which might be one of the best edicts in the game. And the extra edict you get is research, which is also one of the best edicts in the game. So this leader has like everything that's required to be strong. But the problem is just that your early eco with Rotarian is just so bad that you cannot really use those extra constructions, extra research to the amount you would like to use them. And there are basically two ways to play this leader. One is you go non-aggression pact with nearly everybody, and whenever there's a big fight, you use one of your scavenger fleets to get the free materials to basically have a good eco. The big problem with that build is that your leveling will be very slow, uh, mostly because you get XP every time you build a building or you construct something, or when you take a planet with buildings on it. And if you have non-aggression pact with everybody, you won't take planets of other players, and therefore you won't generate a lot of XP. You're slightly below the curve, and in the late game you need, like, if you get good techs, it's doable. You can even become if you get all the capital ships bonuses and you have big Hulk fleets and you engage on Nexus in the late game, you can absolutely win big combats. But yeah, it's just difficult. Eco is so bad, and the alternative playstyle is to go early aggression, because the a good thing about this leader is that you don't need to you don't need to win a war to get something out of it. Basically, the only thing you need to do is to reach a point where you from time to time are able to take a big planet of your opponent that has like 3 to 4 buildings, and your opponent can take it back, and as long as you can re-engage and take it again, everything is fine, and you can peace out like on turn 20 or something like that, and then try to contest Nexus. But again, then you have like good early game XP, and during the wars, like mostly using scavenger, you probably should have gotten a good amount of salvage as well, but you still need like the tech hits are not really consistent. You still have the bad eco. It's not easy. That's why I put him at the bottom. So now let's talk about the other two Rodarians. I think Mechanic is the leader closest to going into the B tier. The reason for that is that getting free ammunitions is super powerful, and I think Mechanic can win games, but he either needs a good matchup, like Mechanic is very good at contesting Nexus around turn 16 and turn 24 before he falls behind the super strong late game factions. But of course, if there's like somebody like Kelazan or somebody else goes for like early Nexus, like Yondar God Queen or something like this, and you have to fight them, you will probably have a hard time. There are good techs that you can hit, which make you even stronger. Uh, but I think to get B tier, he's like not good enough in the late game. There's no consistency to guarantee that you will have a good late game. You always need to make something done. You always need to do something with your military, and that's always a risk. And that's why I don't put him higher. And then there's the Instigator, which is, in my opinion, the most difficult leader to rank. Uh, because I played this leader a lot recently. There was basically his agenda seems to be bugged, and you get far more XP than it's said. Like you also get XP if you trigger plots in empires you don't have any plots in, and that basically doubles your agenda XP. And obviously, like doubling your leveling speed is completely crazy, especially because it's not like one of those agendas that goes off in the late game. But you can, like, I consistently hit like my ultimate for turn 24 council, and I was able to like even push Nexus with like 2 full Hulk fleets using my ultimate to give it extra points. I think it has like the way I play it, technologies are not a big problem because you're relying on the Hulk anyways. The only thing where this leader again really struggles is the late game. You can contest the mid game. This might even be the strongest leader in the mid game, but you will fall behind a lot of other people in the late game, and there's not much you can do. Uh, if you take high roll, you can maybe even keep on if you have a good matchup, if you like people don't backstab you and you only need to fight at one side. You can win games, like obviously you can see I have 46% win rate, 92 top half. Like it's fine. Uh, but if like the one bottom half game, like I got attacked early on by Kelazan, and I actually got back into a very strong spot to like if the game would have not ended at that council, I could have maybe even won because I had a very favorable war against the war player. But the game also had like already a few things going in my favor, and I basically just couldn't recover from basically taking a loss in the early game against the Kelazan player. So I think I put him here. Maybe he even deserves like something like this because it's not like as weird to play as Fnatic. But I just don't think it's good enough to go up here into the B tier because your late game is just not good enough. I think all the leaders that we will see in like above are all stronger in the late game or have bigger benefits early on. Uh, so yeah, now we have done the C tier. So if there are any people watching, is there any feedback? Is there anything that surprises you where you go like, this makes no sense, the leader is like far better, or Overseer, I have tested him once and he's F tier, like D is even still too good for him. Anything like that? Now's your chance to give me some feedback. Okay, seems like that's not the case. So yeah, maybe next we can look at the B tier. There are some leaders that are like very, very clearly B tier for me. And we will order them afterwards. And that are these leaders. So now if you would ask me, what makes these leaders B tier? First of all, like probably ordering is something like this. First, the nationalist. It has one big advantage over all the other TOR1 leaders, and that's that he has the most reliable agenda, and he has a politic edict, so he's like more flexible and can contest titles of all kind. But he has one big weakness, and that's you cannot expand quickly. Mm. And there's like nothing that makes this leader like really good. It's just overall very solid. High army strength means you're like very safe in the early game. People won't want to attack you. You can go megas in the late game. You have a good amount of culture. All those things are great. You're not as vulnerable as the Monumentalist in the late game because you don't have to pick the Troton Mega. You can just like build the normal mega structures, go for some titles, use your high construction and high eco abilities to basically win all the eco titles. Maybe if you get some tech hits, you can even contest for Nexus. And yeah, so overall, like just a very solid leader. Maybe a little bit less like swingy than the Monumentalist. Like I think Monumentalist will can become more dangerous, but if you get like nearly wiped in the late game by somebody who just has like far better military, you can also go bottom half playing Monumentalist. So that's why I think Monumentalist ranked slightly lower. Maybe you could even rank Monumentalist down here. Wait, let me look at my win rates on TOT1. Okay, you know, actually, I will put him down here. Maybe it should even be like maybe here. I don't know. It's hard to rank. Let's rank him lower because I had him in B tier for like such a long time. But I think like Monumentalist, like every time a good player sees a Monumentalist in the game or next to him, he thinks like, oh great, I can take all his megas in the late game and get a huge amount of points. And that's really bad for Monumentalist. You need a good defense set up, and it's not impossible to defend, but it's very hard. Like even if you saw my game yesterday, I think I got pretty lucky regarding a lot of stuff, and it still was kind of close against playing against Strat. I think Strat also got pretty lucky. Uh, we're talking good titles, we are talking good tech and stuff like that. Ether Drake as well, even though like Ether Drake didn't really matter because the top three players, like all like even without Ether Drake, I would have still won the game. So yeah, maybe he deserves like down here. Slightly less, like I think these three leaders can probably beat him, and the other leaders I think need luck to beat him. Okay, then we have the Bureaucrat. The Bureaucrat is, I think, not that great. He has a big problem that the biggest strength of Killik is like creating this like super powerful edict deck. And Bureaucrat just works the other way around. You don't want to have a super powerful, like you will over time get rid of some of the edicts you don't need, and you will still have like an above average edict deck, but you don't have this like super compact deck like Progressive has. You can often go mega structures in the late game, which is a decent strategy. I also recently won a game with him. Uh, Look at the stats, it's like 50% win rate, like it's a very solid leader. You also have access to a very good ranged unit, which I also used during my recent game, which is the on level 3 you can unlock it, which basically gets +1 range attack if for every edict you have in your hand at the end of your turn. And that allows you to basically defend against like normal or like the typical capital push far better than players like maybe Monumentalist. So I think it's fair to put him slightly higher. Also, his ultimate is very, very good because basically you can have a bad early game and don't get titles early on, and then you can reset them to get 12 points in the late game. Feels like a very, very solid option. And then there's the Mercenary. I think this leader struggles for all the same reasons than the other Shinnor leaders do. The reason why I put him higher is that first of all his agenda is better early on. All the other two Shinnor leaders basically start slow and get better and better in the late game. And Mercenary just immediately like can level very quickly early on. And Privateers are really good. So his Leader Edict is very good to like take like a turn 16 Nexus. You definitely like one of the stronger factions to contest turn 16 Nexus. Privateers can be very strong in the late game in comparison to all the other Shinnor leaders. You actually, your ultimate, your like your unique leader ultimate can keep up with buyout. So you actually can choose if you want to take buyout or if you want to take the, I think it's called bonus. And both ultimates can do very good work and can get you towards titles, like bonus in general, can make you one of the strongest military forces without relying on the best possible tech rolls. And I think whenever that's the case, a leader deserves B tier, especially because buyout is like a really strong alternative. Um, so yeah, then who else do we put in B tier? I think we have to put the Seeker. I know it's not Seeker. What is he called? Exalted. Uh, I actually have a very, very good win rate on this leader. Uh, but I don't think he's like that super powerful. I think also if we look at Oyo's stat on this leader, because Oyo is a very, very powerful upper brand player. Uh, okay, here are his other brand stats. Okay, yeah, he mostly played Seeker. And yeah, okay. Also not too much to read out of those stats. Um, I think turning planets neutral is a decent ultimate effect, but when you actually play it, it's very difficult to get your culture with an Archdruid on a specific planet, especially because other people will know that they have to counterplay it and that they will have to get rid of your culture. And when they do that, like basically to guarantee your cult, like to guarantee to get your ultimate, you need to have the culture, the Archdruid Edict, and your ultimate in the same hand. And I think that's not always easy to line up. And even then, like turning neutral is not as good uh, as buyout. And yeah, otherwise, of course, like our brand has an insane eco, the agenda is very strong, but you don't have anything that like necessarily guarantees you a strong military. And therefore, I think you still need like some good techs to become like really dangerous. Like yesterday we saw Strat get torpedo frigates and some other good military techs, and that already made him powerful enough to contest for a win. But I think if you like really miss out or don't get good combinations of techs, you will have a hard time playing with the Exalted. Still better than the other three leaders for sure. Then uh, I think I want to put Admiral into the B tier. Mm. Just like overall recently, I feel like Yun-E was slightly over, like slightly rated too high by me in previous tier lists because I personally really like the Yun-E. But Admiral just has a lot of things that go against each other. Like you have a leader edict that increases your fleet power. But then again, uh, your agenda only really works if you have a lot of fleets. So you don't really want to use your fleets to fight, but you just want to sit around and wait. And that's not super solid. You have like a very, very good setup to go for C1 Nexus. So if that works out, Admiral definitely in a strong position. But again, like the UNE weakness definitely hits hardest against Admiral because like industrial and rich planets are very important to get like the military eco going. So overall, there are just like a lot of things that are going against each other, and managing them can be kind of difficult. Uh, and you don't have any guarantee to have like a very powerful late game. I mean, you can go super carriers, and they might help you out to some extent, but still, agenda also always feels on the weaker side. Therefore, I think overall ranking of Admiral, I will degrade him to the B tier. And now, we have the Conqueror and the Aggressor. This is very, very difficult to rate because Kel is basically the big example of you have like the super powerful early game. Nobody can really contest you, but in the late game, if you don't hit the good techs, people will become stronger and they will be able to take you down. Also, like army strength is also like better in the early and mid game, and army strength is one of the big strengths of this leader. And you're basically the only way to get a high number of points is going to war, and war isn't great. I think these leader, like the big problem is that there will always be someone you just didn't reach in time and who ecoed enough to basically win the game, or when you reach him he already has enough tech to beat you in a fight. So they're basically super scary early on, and then they drop off in the late game. They're still very fun to play. If you look at my win rate, it's like 50% and 65% on Conqueror. Conqueror, I think, is a little bit more like Ken has like more swingy. Either he's very good or he's not doing too great. So you can see my average position on Aggressor is better. Um, Also, Aggressor is like very random if you get like good combats around your home planet. If you can immediately go out and like take combats early on, you're in a good position. But if you basically have to fight another player to get your agenda going, things are getting more difficult. I think overall, Aggressor has a very good agenda into the late game. And I might put him at the top of the B tier. And I think Conqueror will... I think he will go behind the Exalted. Exalted just has a little bit too much eco and culture for the Glepsic, for the Cal to keep up with. But yeah, I think they're doing decent. They can, just them being so scary in the early game, I can basically not put them below B tier. But I think they just miss the big late game power spikes that all the other A and S tier leaders have. And then we have Glepsic. And this is the point where I come back and basically have to say Glepsic, Asphal's Glepsic is not overpowered or doesn't feel overpowered because Glepsic is such a powerful faction, but just because Asphal is very good at piloting the Diplo game plan. Like if you look at my Leipzig, score is really high. So they're always doing decently. But it's difficult for Leipzig, I think, like they're not like the super strong late game contestants. Like you got you have Commune, which might be the best ultimate in the game. But otherwise, like without Commune, Leipzig would be far worse. Commune is the only thing Leipzig has going in their favor, but it's a very big favor. And I think the reason why Aspal wins so many games is because he plays very greedy and he's not getting punished enough. Like you will often see him go for the turn 1 Nexus, Council 1 Nexus, of course, not turn 1. You will often see him get like 30 to 40 Diplo points during a game. And you will also often see that he basically plays very greedy for his agenda. And Aspal himself says that like the Visionary is by far the worst Leipzig leader. He says this leader is so bad it's unbelievable. But if you look at the real difference between like Visionary and the other two Gleb leaders is that you can greed farmer on the other twos. And that's exactly what he does. Like on Socialiate, is that pronounced right? Probably not. But on this one, like you will often see him early on take Nexus to immediately have like 3 or 4 neighbors, and then take a planet on the other side of Nexus from his point of view, so that when he trades away Nexus, he still has like 3 to 4 neighbors. And of course, like Seeker, like this agenda is very strong if you have like 3 to 4 neighbors. But I think people should just not allow him to get so many neighbors, and instead they should attack him early on, take away his planet next to Nexus, and when he doesn't get it, you will actually see that he also performs somewhat poorly. Let me see if I have the Aspal screenshot somewhere here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, he never played Visionary. Okay, yeah. No, screenshot is not good enough. So yeah, I think and Protector is like the same thing, by the way. Like I have some of my, if you look through my videos, you can find some games against Aspal playing Protector. And I play aggressively for Nexus around the second council. So he knows that I will attack him, so he trades it to me to keep peace. And in exchange, he wants non-aggression pact. Then he positions all his ships on Nexus to farm agenda points for Protector. And as soon as I see that he's like getting too many ships on my planets, I will just straight up cancel the non-aggression pact for -2 points and never attack him, just to stop his agenda. And he will immediately fall behind, because his playstyle is like if you successfully greet these agendas and you get commune very early on, these two leaders are very strong. But I just think that people can very easily stop you from doing that. And people should stop you from doing that. And people should take less Diplo, probably, from Leipzig players. And if all of that is done, I think that you won't be like the super crazy late game power that some players can make Leipzig look like. And therefore I think they all deserve the B tier. The question is just how to order them. I think Socialiate should go first, and it might even go in front of no, it doesn't go in front of Aggressor. And yeah, I think we can maybe order them like this. Um, yeah, this is kind of intuitively because I'm not a super experienced Glad player myself, but I think these leaders, the ability to play very greedy just already puts them in front of the Visionary. And I think Socialiate is slightly more consistent. Also, I think that your leader edict, getting free politics, is very good. So maybe I would order them like this. And yeah, that's this ranking. And now all the remaining leaders I personally see in A and S tier. So let's first put them all in the A tier. And yesterday I thought about like how do I wanna put the S tier? And I thought it's time for like a spicy pick. And that's War Technocrat. Like by the way, obviously Yondar Inquisitor cannot be touched as like best leader in the game, in my opinion. Mm. Technocrat is just such a like I think War has a lot of unused potential. I think there are a lot of strategies people have not yet explored, and we might not see that many people winning with War, but I think that War is also one of the factions that a lot of new players like to play. So often the War players will be like less experienced players, and they will just like their like the medium performances are more to War players not playing as well as like some of the other players than War being a bad faction. And for those people who are like, I'm not sure about this, let me reveal my War stats. So my War stats, first of all, have the second highest win rate, only behind Yondar. And I have a 95% top half, which is over 20 games. Of course, only the completely broken Yondar faction is better than that. Um, you can see my win rates are fairly high. I think Teacher is definitely the worst warp leader. Technocrat, this is even funny. This is like 4 games, no, every time getting first, but they actually, I once played a Technocrat game that crashed close to the end, and I was in a massively winning spot. And I was like 90% sure that I would have won that game. So, but since it crashed, we never got this. I never got any stats here. So actually, this should even be like 5 games won. So that's why I put Technocrat here. Teacher is worse. Explorer is kinda good. Uh, yeah, War in general, like the fact that you have like 3 texts to choose from and you basically always have an extra research edict makes you very, very powerful. Mm. Then I think the Crusader is like a very, very difficult leader to put somewhere. Like this is also between S and A tier. Yondar super broken, but the Crusader struggles a little bit with his agenda. I think is not like as great as Inquisitor. Ultimate can be weird to play. You can miss technologies. You have a worse seal protection than the Inquisitor. I still think he might barely make the S tier. So I want to look at stats again. I want to look at Strat because Strat always was one of those players that told us that Crusader is completely broken. So let's see his stat line. Yeah, but even Strat has like significantly worse stats on Crusader than on Inquisitor. And I personally, my Crusader stats, I played 8 games and I got second twice, I think, and all the other games were won. Yondar's just so broken. Yeah, like currently I'm trying to figure out like when I compare Crusader to Explorer, who's the stronger leader out of those two? And I think Crusader. I think Crusader will make the cut to the top of S tier, or like to the last S tier leader, and I will cut off at Explorer when going down to A tier. Main reason is that Crusader has a very, very strong agenda that you can use to rush early on. And Explorer basically needs some like map generation is very important for the Explorer because if you don't have Nebulas, your XP gain is very, very slow. So yeah. Then next I want to place the Hunter. I actually previously I have ranked the Hunter in S tier. A big reason is if we look at my Hunter stats, it's actually 5 games, 5 victories, which is my highest game 100% win rate leader. But I also haven't touched Hunter in like ages. And I think if I would play it nowadays, I would probably drop my 100% win rate. I think he's definitely the best Kalazan leader, just because he has far better eco than the other two Kalazan leaders. And you will normally get like a very, very powerful late game. But I think it's not as big of a no-brainer in compare like as the S tier leaders and maybe also slightly worse than Explorer. Like the Great Hunt Edict early on can be somewhat difficult to fit. Your agenda is slightly slightly slower than other Kalazan leaders. It's difficult to. I think it's I think it's just like slightly worse than the S tier leaders. I think all these 3 leaders up here are more consistent to becoming very powerful still. I think he is a very, very powerful leader. So then we have these 5 leaders left. So first of all, Seeker. Like previously, I have ranked Seeker as an A tier leader, as an S tier leader, but I think I kind of reconsidered that. I played him quite a bit myself recently and actually didn't do that well. If you check my stats, I think I even played like below my average. Yeah, win rate is below average. And I think a big reason for that is that I was not playing it like optimally. But I also think that it's like very tech dependent. I think he's stronger than the other, like Exalted and all those leaders. Your culture domination is crazy. Your eco is crazy. Your leader edict is very, very powerful in the late game. I think it gives you an edge over many other leaders during combat. But I think he misses the like consistent, super crazy late game all the other leaders up here have. So I might rank him. I think we remove them like this. Think the Diplomat is even slightly worse than Seeker here because Diplomat has a very, very strong set of ultimates. You can either go versatile, but your versatile will be slightly worse than the versatile of other leaders, of other UNE leaders. Your agenda early on is super crazy, but stops working in the late game. Uh, your ultimate to make non-aggression pacts basically means that you can guarantee that you won't be attacked in the late game, which is very, very powerful. Uh, but for that to really be useful, you first need to get into winning position. So I think the late game of Diplomat is just very, very powerful. When you get ahead, you can basically always secure a victory. But it also, like also forcing pacts is like such a solid mid game. It's a very annoying leader. Yeah, I think I would order it like this. Diplomat down here. And then the other threes. I think I would order them like this. I think Progressive is moved up from B tier to A tier. And the reason for that is like basically three things. Earlier today, I checked Craft's stats, and actually Progressive is his highest win rate on like a reasonable number of games. If we look over here, I have 4 games, 4 victories on Progressive. So I'm doing great on it as well. And then we recently had a game where Train Track completely ran over the entire lobby in the late game using Progressive himself. And all of that together, I know that it like you need to get good tech rolls. But currently I just feel like Progressive has like so many strong showings. Like it's hard to pinpoint what makes him so overpowered, besides like obviously being able to get a very, very strong eco going. But you can just contest basically everything. And if you get good techs and people don't punish you in the early game, Progressive might become the strongest leader in the game. So yeah, I think he deserves A tier. I think Teacher is slightly higher. Um, I don't know. It's my permaban. It's just a very annoying leader. The ultimate is super powerful. One of the strongest late games with the ultimate, and especially if like people feed her too much. Like a feeded teacher player basically is like S tier, but since I don't consider like people like feeding too much, I think she's only like A tier and the worst war player, but still extremely solid. Um, and then I think Patriot, as I said earlier, just a very, very solid leader. I think it's not enough for like S tier because there's no guarantee that you will hit an insane combo, but just like very, very solid overall. Okay, so let's wait a little bit if there's like anybody wanting to share his opinion if like something is ranked like super weirdly. And otherwise, I will call it a day and post the new tier list. Okay, then thank you all for